Biscuits were invented as a food for Nelson's Navy. Because they are dry, they will keep a long time. Nowadays, Nelson wouldn't recognise the biscuits, they've changed so much. Biscuits are really bread or cake that's been dried with extra baking. The main ingredients are wheat flour, fat and sugar. Water helps the process, but it's not a final ingredient. Wheat is the best grain to provide flour because the proteins in it have special properties that are most suitable for biscuit making. This is a cross-section of a grain of wheat. The outer shell is the bran. The germ is the part that would germinate and grow. The white substance is starch, and the network, or matrix as it's called, is protein. The bran and the germ are removed, and what's left is the flour, a mixture of starch and protein. A lot of the skill in biscuit making depends on the way this protein is handled. This is what dough looks like under the microscope before it's mixed. You can clearly see the large globules of starch and protein. Here we've drawn the globules of protein unravelling as the dough is mixed. Each strand reaches out and joins other strands, making a continuous network or matrix. The microscope shows here exactly what the protein matrix looks like. The strands are elastic, allowing the dough to stretch. This is a perfect dough. If we kept mixing, eventually the strands would break and then the dough would be useless because the matrix has been destroyed. This is the dough mixing floor in Arnott's Brisbane factory. The flour and water comes down these chutes and the extra ingredients are added from bins on the factory floor. Here the dough is rolled out, getting thinner each time it passes through these giant rolling machines. Saos have about 8 very thin layers with pockets of air inside. It's very hard to make the layers so thin. To make the dough soft and elastic, some of it is fermented with yeast. Yeast and other microorganisms are added to the flour and water. Because the ferment was added to the mix, the sheet is quite elastic. But there are limits to how much it can be stretched in one direction. So this is how the problem is solved. Before the dough is stretched too much, it's folded sideways. And now when the rollers press the dough, it's being pulled across the grain and the protein doesn't break. And this is really 8 sheets that will separate when the biscuit is baked. This is the cutter where the shapes are formed. The scraps are sent back to be recycled into another sheet. These are cracker biscuits. The dough is mainly flour and water.